look up environmental history in Webster's dictionary, you won't find any definition. Webster's dictionary began in 1806, so of course there was no environmental history then. If you look at Webster's new dictionary online, you still won't find it, but it should be there. It has not yet made it into the dictionary world. So I'm going to give you not Webster's definition, but Worcester's definition. And it will be, of course, controversial and contentious because there is no subtle meaning of this word. The concept or phrase environmental history, I think, began around the year 1970 at the time of the first Earth Day in the United States. Originally, it was an American concept, but it has spread all over the planet in some form or another. But I think what all of us have meant by this term is the history of a vital relationship, the relationship of humans to the non-human world, or what we sometimes call nature. Why do we use the word environmental in environmental history rather than nature history or natural history? Probably because it seemed less encumbered by all the rich, complex meanings that the word nature or its equivalent in other languages has acquired over the centuries. It seemed more objective, more scientific, and at the same time it was broader than a word like ecological or ecological history. Environment suggested something broader than that, not just ecology, but geology, hydrology, climate systems. Environmental suggested that humans are embedded in the non-human world in all those different ways, and that we affect the non-human world with our behavior, which in turn affects us and our welfare. The idea of nature had come to mean someplace out there in the forest, in the mountains. We wanted to focus on the more ubiquitous places around us, the relationship of humans to the natural world or the non-human world, wherever they lived. It might be in a city of 20 million people like Beijing. It might be in a factory. It might be on the farm. It was a relationship with all of the world that we eat and breathe, we walk on. It was this everyday environment where we live that we sensed was in danger and needed the attention by historians. At the same time the phrase environmental history appeared in the United States, an agency called the Environmental Protection Agency was being established. There was the word environment again. So in a sense, we were both trying to set out to form new institutions and approaches. The EPA was founded to protect human health in its relationship to the environment. So similarly, the mission of environmental history was to study and explain changes in human health and the health of the environment over time. Of course, health has been studied by doctors, hospitals, organizations like the Institutes for Health in the United States and other countries. It has been studied by historians for a long time, the history of epidemics, infectious diseases, infant mortality, growing old. A lot of money was being spent on the subject of health, a lot of attention. But what the EPA introduced was a new and broader definition of health as a comprehensive relationship between humans and the non-human world. Health came to mean that the health of people and the land are always intertwined. Someone has said that the Environmental Protection Agency is the institutional shadow of Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, published in 1962. It was certainly that book that put this new concept of health in our minds, and it was an important influence also on environmental historians. The manufacture of DDT and other pesticides and its use in agricultural production was killing ecosystems, Rachel Carson said, and endangering human health. And it was that relationship that both the EPA and environmental history focused on. Doctors and hospitals commonly did not pay any attention to the toxic waste, to pesticides, nor did historians of medicine and health. Besides pesticides and other toxic substances, The environmental patterns of land and water use were making the environment unhealthy, ugly, unstable, leading to human sickness or poverty or insecurity. So for historians to look at the past in this light, you might say the light of Rachel Carson or Earth Day, required nothing less than a revolution in thinking. When I was a graduate student in the 1960s and early 1970s, this was at Yale University in Connecticut, the dominant perspective of my professors and most of my fellow students was the history of ideas, or intellectual history. Everybody was studying the ideas of religion, Puritanism and its effect on American culture, or the ideas about race and slavery, of course influenced by the Civil Rights Movement. History should be a record only of human affairs, and then only a record of past human thought. Its subject matter was the deliberate, willed, rational behavior of people, the reasoned actions of men and women. So, for example, the bubonic plague, spread by the black rat in late medieval Europe, was not a subject for history in every way. The rat was not a subject of history. The bubonic plague itself was not a subject of history. Even the dying of people was, in a sense, not the subject of history. The subject of history was what people thought about all of this and the kind of reasoning that went on, their explanations and how they responded intellectually. Environmental history, in contrast, has argued that we cannot maintain this rigid distinction between the human mind and the rest of nature, or for that matter, the animal side of humans, our emotions, our body needs, and says that we must pay more attention to the vast, complex history of our material lives. Material not only in an economic sense, but in a visceral body sense, and learn to see the human past as emerging from the history of all life. We can't make a rigid distinction here. Humankind's history is integral with the history of planet Earth, of natural evolution, of adaptation, maladaptation. It deals with our fitness as organisms, as societies, as cultures in relationship to our environment. So to call environmental history a revolutionary new perspective is not to say that everybody marches to the same tune. But I think that history has been moving toward a far more ambitious goal than simply adding another subfield to a discipline that is loaded with subfields today. Environmental history has been calling for historians to see the past as one with the past of the earth, with the history of all living things. One with the oceans, the atmosphere, microorganisms, climate, the whole biosphere. History should not be confined to a succession of ideas, but should deal centrally with our species' long struggle for health on a planet that itself may be sick or healthy due to our actions.